to me. Okay. I want to, speaking of old friends, I get to bring on a friend of mine from over 10 years ago, the actor Douglas Taurel, who has an amazing show. And it's really fitting now because we're in the midst of the breakout of World War III. My friend has been working on this show about military veterans. I actually got to see it in one of the great acting studios in New York as he was developing this show. He's an absolutely phenomenal actor. The play is phenomenal, and it is touring right now. My friend, Douglas. Douglas, welcome to the show.
Oh, Michael, so great to see you again, man. Thank you for having me, brother.
I am so glad to see. So, you're one of these actors where probably the audience has seen you somewhere. I mean, you've been acting for a long time in TV and in plays, and so they've probably seen you somewhere. But you never.
Cop.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And but the project that I most know you from is this phenomenal one-man show about the American soldier that now is probably more relevant than ever. So where are you taking the show? Where can people go see it? And why do you keep doing it?
That's a great question. I'm about to fly out today to go to Michigan. I'm performing in Michigan on 21st, and then I come back for a couple of days, and I'll do it in Texas, and then very next day I fly out to Connecticut, and then I come back, and then I go to PA. I keep doing it because people keep asking for it. Vets and military families keep asking for it. I mean, I always tell my wife, I think this year's the last time I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't think it's very relevant. And then boom, 5, 6, 7 bookings coming out of nowhere, which has been really interesting, because you travel to blue states, you travel to red states, and you would think the response would be different, but it's not, because you meet people who have served, people who have lost loved ones, Gold Star family members, Blue Star family members. Gold Star family, for people who don't know, is people who have lost a family member in combat or service. And you just realize that there's a lot of pain out in the nation. People are really, specifically veterans, and after the withdrawal of Afghanistan, they're irking for someone to tell their story. And for a lot of vets, it's hard. It's hard for them to tell their story. They don't really know how to do it. They're afraid of how to do it. They feel embarrassed, weak, all the stigmas that vets go through that we all know. 30,000 veterans have taken their lives since 9/11. And so we're losing more soldiers than we are in wars. And just to give you context,
wow,
we lost 7,000 only in the 20-year war that we had with Iraq and Afghanistan. And so there's a lot of pain out there, and there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I think that's why the play keeps going, because people feel that it mends and heals them.
That's an amazing statistic that I'd never considered before. When you talk about the losses from that war, we were in a war for 2 decades.
Yep.
You had more than 4 times the number of veteran deaths from suicide that you had from actual combat.
Yeah, and not only that, people always say 22, that you hear the number 22 a day. It's probably around 40 a day, because 22 is what are the drastic suicides, but you don't hear about guys who drink themselves to death, guys who do drug overdose, people who just kind of fall off the radar, and drugs now, fentanyl and everything, and a lot of vets are doing them, and you see the homeless problem all over the nation in the streets. And I don't know, I believe that because we don't honor these stories, we don't honor our vets. I think it's a big cultural problem we have in our nation. When you go back to back even from the Greek days, when the Greeks, they emphasize honoring their soldiers, honoring the men who served in combat. Sophocles was a general in 500 BC, and he wrote a play called Ajax, and it's all about that. And most of the actors in that play were citizen combatants, and they fought for 80 years on multiple fronts. And Comanches, the Cherokees, they would honor their soldiers, and it allowed, the community, the nation, to have a glue to hold on to each other. And because I don't know why we don't do it in this country, but it's And it goes back even from the days of the revolution, after the guys would fight, Minutemen who came back from fighting, in the revolution, they were thrown away in many ways. They weren't recognized. They weren't, all the money they were promised it was never given to them. Civil War, World War I, the march to World War I. And I don't know, to me, when I first performed this play, Michael, in 2015, I did it for 8 people in the Lower East Side, Manhattan. I had no idea that I would be where I'm up to about 45 cities, 40 states right now.
Wow.
And when I first performed it, I remember thinking, because, as an actor, you write a project, you do it, a little bit for vanity, a little bit because you want to give a voice, but you don't really know what you have until you find out what you have. And I remember performing it in a Gold Star sister who lost her brother in Afghanistan, was really emotional after the play. And she came up to me, she says, I hope you don't stop because I think what you're doing is really important. And I was like, okay, yeah. I appreciate that, and then, here I am, 2023, still doing the play, and I get the same responses. People still tell me after the play, please don't stop. Please keep telling the story. So,
you mentioned Sophocles, and it reminds me, I sort of think, that might be the last time that we in the West had a patriotic major thespian, and it's not true. There have been a handful. Obviously, I'm in the company of one right now, but you're right. It does seem to be a minority of show business, and especially now, back in the World War II generation, the Vietnam generation, or until 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the population had a connection to the military, had served, had been drafted. Today, it's something like 1% of Americans have served in the military. 99% of the country, let's say some of them, you got family members, you got maybe some military families, but still the vast majority of the population has no freaking clue what it is like for the people who protect our nation.
No, and when I first wrote the play, I was in the World Trade Towers when they first came down, and so I was really connected to the Middle East, and I wanted to find out what was going on, and where are we going, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so then I started reading stories about guys who were struggling with PTS, and the suicide rate was just being talked about, but the financial problems were being talked about a lot. Guys who couldn't even pay their bills, who'd done 4 or 5 deployments, and I thought, seems kind of unfair to take shrapnel on the ass and you can't pay your bills, and so I said, well, let me look into it, and then I wrote this play, and the goal of the play was to give people a true understanding when you say thank you for your service, what that means. That means a dad who hasn't been back, who's gone on 4 or 5 deployments, a family who lost their son or daughter, a mother who doesn't come back. The loneliness of sitting at the dinner table and a parent not being there, which we as a family, we take for granted because we always have dinner together. But, that's what service is. And a lot of people don't understand that. And, we're kind of, sharpening sabers right now with what's going on in the world. And people think, let's go to war. And, I'm like, I don't think people really have an understanding of what war really is, and which, to me, I've always talked about this in the Q&As. I kind of feel, because when you say the draft, because of Vietnam, it brings up this just frenzy shock thing, and I feel that this nation needs some kind of draft of some kind, not necessarily a combatant draft, but for us to serve the nation.
Any kind of public service.
Any kind of public service. So we're connected and we understand each other and we have a glue what we are committed to, right? Because if there's no skin in the game, then who cares?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the culture, but I think that's a major one, because you talk about World War II, everyone knew someone who either served or was overseas, or even Vietnam, which is not only 50 years ago, even Vietnam, where now it's like you said, it's less and less. And that a lot of that happened because of Vietnam, because of the draft. So everyone said, no more draft, no more. And so now it's a voluntary service, basically. So now, we're sending, people from the smallest parts of their town to serve, to do the biddings that, perhaps as a nation, we all should be doing. And then perhaps as a nation, if more people served, then we would be more cautious in how we use that power, right? Because
it's not just frivolous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the other thing is, if more people served, like if maybe everybody had to serve at some point, then that would mean that even the thespians, even the people in show business would have some freaking common sense about anything. And they could tell stories that are maybe not quite as good, but at least up there with the story that you're telling. Douglas, before I let you go, where can people find tour dates, get tickets, figure out how? Because I'll tell you, the reason, by the way, that I keep calling Douglas, is because of a great acting teacher that he and I shared, Win Handman, who, for some reason, maybe we'll bring you back. We can get into the story of why he did that. But this play has just been cultivated from the best traditions of the American theater. And so where can people get tickets?
Go to my website, www.theamericansoldiersoloshow.com. And there's a link that says upcoming productions, and there you can get all the tickets. It's a big link right in the center. And Win called me Douglas because he had two Hispanic maids, basically workers, and they couldn't pronounce my name Douglas. And so when I would come over his house, they say, "Win, Douglas is here, Douglas," and it freaking stuck, man. And from then on, I was known as Douglas.
Douglas, that's great. It's a great. That'll be on your Wikipedia page or on your epitaph. Douglas Taurel, stage name Douglas. Oh, okay, all right, that's fine. The American Soldier Solo Show.com. That's the place to go get it. Douglas, a great pleasure to have you on. Thanks for coming on, and keep it up. And I hope that I can come see the show in one of these cities around.
Well, I'll be in Tennessee next year, so you're going to come. Great.
I can't wait. Fabulous. Thank you, sir. And thank you to all of you. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. We will see you tomorrow.